All right. Hello and welcome back to the VST Weekly Roundup. Today we're going to be recapping week 1 of the football season. It is an exciting season so far. We had some surprising matchups. We had a couple eye-opening games. And hey, we had a school record set. So we'll be getting to all of that as we jump in. Joining me, as always, is Kenny Hodges. Say hello.
What's going on, everybody? Hey, we had another exciting week, man. We're going to jump right all in this.
And back again is Kaylie Harden.
And I realized you guys have been taking attendance since I went to the game last Friday and had so many people asking me how I was feeling from being sick last week. So thank you.
We love you guys for caring, and thank you for watching right off the bat. It means a lot when we know you guys are watching because we put this out for you. But we'll jump right into an exciting week of football. We had a bunch of games. We'll go in. Arleta visited Chatsworth in pretty much a slugfest. It was a physical kind of grinding matchup, which is known for both teams. Arleta came out on top 15-12. Grant went into Cleveland in their return match from last year. Cleveland came out on top 38-15. Canoga Park visited North Hollywood, and North Hollywood moved to 2-0. It was a 56-15 thrashing. And as we said last week, Canoga's kind of in a bit of a retooling phase this year. As is this next team, Poly. Panorama went into Poly. It was a 34-13 victory for them. Panorama moves to 2-0, preparing for their schedule as they get a little rougher. Van Nuys was coming off of a really good win in week 0. They ran into a Granada Hills team that finally seems like they're starting to put the talent together. It's a 55-7 finish there for Granada Hills. Kennedy bounced back in their trip to Lincoln. It was a 60-22 final. Fairfax just outlasted Sylmar, and this was a matchup we had circled for Sylmar. How they fared here would probably go a long way towards their Valley Mission League. 25-20 is not bad. So that says something good for them. Keep your eyes out for that article if it's not live when you watch this. Village went into Granada Hills, and Village Christian has some weapons. And this was going to be the question of if Granada Hills can actually show something against a quality Southern Section school, now we can know where they stand this year, as they have those high open hopes. Village kind of didn't let them do anything. It was a 45-8 final, and we'll go deeper into that when we do our in-depth recaps. Monroe hosted Marshall, but Marshall came out on top. It was 20-15. Taft hosted LA, and like we predicted, LA couldn't really do anything. It was a 28-0 victory for Taft. Reseda, under Austin Ward, they hung tough. It was a 37-36 final. This program is really starting to show kind of signs of growth in year 2. We're excited to see where that one's going to go. Heritage Christian, officially the road team, but they were hosting their first game at their field now that they have lights. So they defeated El Camino, who was the home team on paper. It was a 36-19 final. We'll go in depth on that one as well a little bit when we do our full recaps. And then our game of the week was Birmingham visiting Notre Dame. Kind of a repeat from last year. 41-0 Notre Dame over Birmingham. And we will have that one as our final in-depth look. Kenny, what are your thoughts?
So news and notes that I have from around the valley. Listen, we'll start with North Hollywood, Cleveland, Panorama. Story on those games are pretty simple to me. We know these are good teams. We expect these teams to do big things this year. And then you go out and against opponents that you're supposed to beat, and they handle business. A good job on those parts for those teams. When you look at teams like Reseda, Austin Ward he's got it going in the right direction. They just need some time. It was despite coming up on the short end of a 1-point loss. You can see the trajectory for this team, so that's positive news there for them. If there's a silver lining to take, Monroe is just they lost quite a bit in terms of what was the sort of heart and soul of that team, but the pieces are still there. No one's going to just blow them out of the water. They're going to be in every game they play. It's just going to take them some time to sort of rebuild that identity, and hopefully by the time they get into East Valley play, they'll sort of kind of have some things sort of figured out. Pops always kind of finds a way to get these guys going and motivated. I think they're going to be just fine. Like you said, we'll go into a team like Elko, but a positive thing that I took from that was it was a strong showing against a Southern Section foe, and it might be an indicator of how tough it's going to be to deal with this team in the West Valley later on in the year. Marlita's giving me, as I just mentioned with Monroe, they're giving me 2022 Monroe vibes when you watch this team. Even watching them play against Chatsworth, I felt like I was having a little deja vu, a little Groundhog's Day from what I watched Monroe go to Chatsworth and do in non-league play last year. Bend but don't break. Make the plays when you need to. And if that's easier said than done against a tough physical Chatsworth team that can beat you down and wear you down with the likes of Ramo and company that they have there. So that was positive for our leader. They're going to be a team you need to pay attention to. Notre Dame handled Birmingham. What can you say? It's a Southern Section team. Birmingham has done this. Birmingham tends to struggle because they schedule so tough, but the story on them is the same. They're still the kings of the city until somebody from the city takes them down. So we'll take any score that comes from the Southern Section game with a grain of salt, and we'll get more into that later on. Village beating up Granada. It was really the Chase Everett show. Arshavir is going to have everything you need to know about that game, but we'll delve into some of what's going on with Granada as we kind of unpack that game. One of the games that excited me, Kennedy going on the road against the number 15 team in the city section and hanging 60 on them. Lonzo Fuentes Gutierrez was everywhere. Diego Montes continues to show that he's in control of that offense. That's a team that everybody's going to have to be worried about facing as the season goes along. And I'll wrap it up with a couple of notes. San Fernando and Chavez. What a slugfest. If y'all know me, if you've been listening to this show, you know how I feel about Chavez. You know how I feel about tough smash mouth football. But these two teams put on a show defensively in a 14-0 game. There's a lot of positives that are going to come out of in the future for Chavez. And these seniors for San Fernando aren't playing with anybody this year. They are going to be a problem to deal with. Everybody better watch out in the Valley Mission because you are going to have to bring a lunch pail when you play that team. And I'll end with the two head coaches, notes on two head coaches. Coach Sean Jackson at Verdugo Hills was the city section coach of the week last week. Me and Arshavir were joking around like, hey, you can't go lay an egg after you win that award. And he absolutely did not handle business against Van Nuys, put up 55 on those boys. Good job by Sean Jackson and the boys over there at Verdugo Hills. And congratulations to head coach Fred Emerson at Taft for winning his first game as the head coach at Taft. They handled business against Los Angeles. The team pitched a shutout. They looked better defensively from week 0 against Westlake. The offense is still humming. Leo Lesham and Jacob Peary combined for 200 yards receiving, had catches and touchdowns all over the place. Their three-headed monsters all found the end zone. Devin Conroy went crazy. Taft is going to be a team to deal with in the West Valley, whether people like it or not. And congratulations to Fred Emerson on getting his first win as the head coach. And those are my news and notes.
And yeah, it was definitely, exciting to kind of go through everything as it was happening. Kenny, you had a little bit of misfortune that allowed you to see a lot of these games digitally, which, blessing in disguise, I guess. Mm-hmm. We'll get into that a little more. And I'm going to roll into the first game that we're going to go in depth on, and that was Village Christian visiting Granada Hills. And like we said, this was going to be something that is going to speak volumes about both programs, right? For us, it was our first time seeing Village this season. And Granada Hills was facing a quality Southern Section opponent after choosing wisely, like we said, to finish week 0 in a tie. Now, there's a couple of different points that are important to kind of hit on, right? Coach Broussard at Village is a different animal. This cat, he has an energy about him that permeates that entire program. And his approach to the game of football is almost all gas, no brakes. And I love it, because when last year you kind of saw the teasing of what they could be, now you see them kind of understand what's coming. And we'll jump right. They took the first drive and marched in for a touchdown, right? And the interesting thing there, real quick, is the first reception. Make sure I got it right in my note here. No. Yeah, the very first reception of the game went to Ryan Delutri. And young Mr. Delutri, with that reception, broke the Village Christian School record for career receptions. He finished the game at 82. So that was number 77. And he's got an entire season ahead of him. So we'll see. He'll be at 100 and something when all is said and done. That'll be a tough record for someone to come and beat later. But that was there. And it was quite interesting to watch Village march the field early. And Granada, like I said, that first drive, Village went in and scored. And then Granada answered back. Boom. They took that first drive and moved a little bit and then broke one for the touchdown. And 8-6 right there. Village stopped the extra point, got the ball back. And then Granada Hills capitalized on a handoff miscue, got the safety, and now it's a tie ball game. And I'm looking at this like, great. This is what we were hoping out of Granada. They're hanging tough. They're punch, counter punch, and let's go. Well, Village gets a stop and then gets a score. And now they recover an onside kick. And this is where I was saying all gas, no brakes. I think Village recovered 3 onside kicks in the game. When we cover Village, I need to do a better job of tracking that. But it was at least 3. And each one they recovered turned into a score. And remember, Kenny, you and I, when we were talking about this in the preview and even off camera, we said a key to Granada's game against Village is keeping Chase Everett off the field by chewing up clock and running the ball, right?
Yeah, for sure. Because the young man is so in control of everything that goes on that field that if you aren't able to keep him on the sideline, you're going to have these things happen that we saw in this ball game, which is he has 3 senior receivers that he leans on that are all polished, that all can make plays with the balls in their hand, including, like you said, Ryan Delutri, who broke the record this week, is the all-time leading receiver at Village. But it's more than just Delutri. Olalade, I think is his name. The other senior that plays on the other side of him. Flournoy Trice, the other guy. Like, these are all guys that can kill you when the ball gets in their hands. And he is so accurate with the football. He is so like you talked about, you saw up close and personal on the sideline, his ability to, before the receivers even out of their breaks, the ball's already going to be there. So you have to minimize the amount of time that kid is on the field, and mistakes and just not being able to kind of just play with some discipline really, really hurt them in this game and allowed Chase Everett to go nuts.
Even that aside, the discipline, and I'll get to that in a moment. What Village did with those onside kicks was what we were hoping. We wanted to see out of Granada was
create extra possessions. Yeah,
exactly. They kept the Granada team off the field. They kept that Granada offense from getting any kind of flow, any kind of rhythm. Score, boom, onside kick. Score, boom, onside kick. And that kicker really knows how to kick a whirly dervish of an onsider. I mean, I've heard his onside kicks described in different ways: Tasmanian devil, whirling dervish, stationary tornadoes, just kind of, and that thing just spins. It's a skill. It's a skill, and Village is making the most of it. But that was the thing, right? Throughout the entire game, what could happen? And that was the story of that second quarter, because the first quarter finished 8-8, and we're pumped. Like, here we go. We're gonna have a great back and forth kind of chess match. And then comes the second quarter, and we go into halftime, and the score's 30-8. You look at you want to ask what happened. Well, Village scored and got some onside kicks, and then they even added 2 field goals before the half ended. So I do want to note, because you mentioned the senior wide receivers. Olalade had 6 receptions for 42 yards, 2 touchdowns. Florno Trice, he had 4 receptions for 24 yards. He was kind of
the out of the backfield option. Yeah,
he had 4 carries for 52
yards. And honestly, if there's anything to really take away with Village from this game. Obviously, we saw what they did. We know Chase Everett is the story. Back now, that's 2 games this year, back-to-back games with 5 touchdown passes. God knows what his numbers are going to look like by the time we get to the end of the year. But if this team is going to accomplish the things that they want to accomplish with having a young, dynamic, with the world is his oysters type quarterback, and with all this senior and experience around him, is that run game is going to have to be part of it. Him throwing the ball 42 times is great against a team when you've got them on the ropes. But when they run into stiffer competition down the line, and when they head towards the postseason, you're going to run into teams that will tee off on you. You're going to run into teams that have the bodies to kind of put pressure on your quarterback. If you've got a back who can break runs, or you've got sort of a 2 or 3 headed monster in terms of coming out of your backfield, that can tote the ball for 4.5, 4.8 yards a touch, that's going to be the balance that'll help Christian Village get to the places they want to get to. So that's going to be important for them. Continuing to mix in that run game along with what Chase Everett can do, and they're going to go places this year.
Yeah. And ideally, I'd want to see, Chase down around the 30 mark in terms of attempts, right? But it is what it is. And that's the thing. Trice, he averaged 13 yards a carry. He had 4 carries, right? Now, you give him 5 or 6 more carries, that probably yards per carry might go down a little bit, but you're still talking about somebody to be worried about out of the backfield. Now, before I move a little more and focus on Granada, I've got two more names I want to touch on that were part of his offensive attack. He spread the ball around. You had junior Lucas Lehman, and he had 5 receptions for 43 yards. And this man, he had this one-handed touchdown catch in the end zone. I think it was kind of early on. And no, it was actually one of the last touchdowns. But it was nice and kind of over the middle, and he went and just plopped it. Really nice catch. And he's a junior, so he'll be back. That's a good connection to look at. And then there's a sophomore that was very involved throughout the game. I don't think he caught a pass, but he ran the ball.
You talking about Makandichi?
Yeah, actually, he caught one.
Yeah, he had one.
He had one for 11 yards. But they used him out of the backfield, so it was definitely an interesting kind of usage for him. But he's a sophomore.
Yeah, he's the young guy.
Tyus Makandici's a sophomore. Chase Everett's a sophomore. So when you've got these kind of young guys that are stepping up to provide production along with the seniors, you're going to be looking at doing some really good things, not only now, but in the future. So that's exciting. I'm going to wind up the long-windedness and go back to Granada. We spent all that time on Village Christian because Village Christian did a lot of good. They put a lot of pressure on Granada Hills in a way that we haven't seen since the state playoffs last year. And that was the only time we saw it last year. Kind of really like that, to that level. But with Granada, the thing that really, really bothered me were their mental struggles. They had so many pre-play penalties, it blew my mind. They had at least 10 false starts, at least 10 offside encroachments when Chase would do the hard count and they jumped the line. And I get it, right? You want to get at the quarterback, especially, this is a passing team, but they were a little too antsy. You added up, that's a minimum of 20 pre-play penalties that either set you back on offense or set you back on defense. And offensively, we know this team is not really built to chase the game. They got to be out in front and they'll grind you down. They finished with 118 total yards of offense. So it really was a matter of once the Village really got out in front, they exerted their will throughout the rest of the game. Speaking to Coach Brooks after the game, he told me, he was like, look, we got outplayed, we got outcoached. This was a game that you really want to learn from, and you kind of flush it and figure out what you're going to do next. Because you take whatever little positives you have and you flush it. Think about it. This isn't a game that you watch the tape, but really you just got to fix it between the ears, kind of, and understand that, okay, this is a challenge. You take what you can, you learn, you move on, and you understand that, hey, that was a really good team you faced. You're facing a really good team next week, and you got to come prepared to grind, prepared to fight in the trenches, or else we might be seeing another one of these for Granada.
Well, and here's what I will say: the goodwill that Granada has built and what they've done the last couple of years is the idea that sometimes, like what Brooks was saying. So you earn the right to be able to take a bad performance and kind of throw it away and say, hey, that y'all know that's not us. Y'all know that's not who we are. That's not who we've been. But sometimes you get punched in the nose and everything goes white. Everything, if you've ever been in a fight and someone lands that shot, it happens. And now you're chasing. It's like watching a UFC fight where somebody gets hit with a right hook, and now they're stumbling around and trying to get their bearings, or they try to pull guard to try to just get things back situated. And it kind of really felt like you saw that happen in Granada. It was really uncharacteristic of this team to see them make that many penalties or that many mistakes on both sides of the ball. And it almost felt as if it was unfamiliar territory because of how dominant they've been over the course of the last year, that it was an unfamiliar feeling to be in a situation where we can't plug the leaks. They're getting these onside kicks on us. The ball's spinning crazy. Like things are happening that they just aren't used to. And they just never felt like they could it started coming downhill on them, and they just never got their footing. I will say that tape on Saturday morning, that must have been rough to kind of go through. But sometimes, and we've seen it with other good teams in the city section, sometimes you take that smack in the mouth from a Southern section team, and it kind of shows you what the work is that you need to put in before you take the field again. Sometimes, especially for our city section teams, it's not going to hurt you in the long run in terms of where your ranking is or how teams or other teams might view you. But this might end up being a positive that shows them like, hey, Dijon ain't here to clean up things. It's on you guys. It's on the guys now who are here to kind of step up, because before we could afford to make a mistake and end up behind the chains because we can hand it to number one and he just go get us 40 or 50 or go take it to the crib. It's going to be a little bit more of a work in progress this year. There's still plenty of talent here to get it done, but this is what can happen to us if we get undisciplined, if we get outside of ourselves. We're not a team that's built to come back from 20 or 30 points down. We're not a team that can afford to give other teams opportunities to kind of keep moving the chains and making it easier for them to put points on the board. That's the opposite of who we've been. That's the opposite of what we can do or what we need to do to be competitive. And hopefully they take this, and next week when they go to Palisades, they put a number on them. So we'll be looking out for it.
We will. And, from that city section, southern section matchup to another one, which is the league rivals of both of them. El Camino versus Heritage Christian. Heritage and Village are in the same league, and as we know, El Camino and Granada are West Valley. Now, this matchup between El Camino and Heritage has bounced around. It's I feel terrible for both programs having to go through what they were, where are we going to play? El Camino, obviously, still having field issues, still trying to figure it out. I'm going to stop there before I get on a soapbox. Anyways, the game was initially supposed to be played at Birmingham. El Camino, the home team. Turf management situation arose early in the week, and okay, we're not playing there. Well, Heritage was able to step up, and the game was played at Heritage, even though Heritage was the designated road team. So one of those interesting little quirks. They got to play the first game on their field as the visitors. So it was an interesting little twist. But this was another game where right off the bat, you're looking at it and going, okay, what are we going to see in terms of compete? How are they going to match up? These are two teams that we didn't expect to be at the top of their league, right, based on who's in it and what's happening. But these are teams we expect to compete, and compete they did. Just like we saw on Friday night, you had the visitors in this instance come out and just march the field and score. And it was Heritage. They came down the field, and it was literal just march. First play, I think it was first play of the game was a 50-yard bomb down the field. Really, really good pass, and set them up in great field position. Ended up punching it in, and then just kind of kept going. And this was interesting. Again, El Camino countered right back. And that was an interesting kind of counter because they didn't go big. They went chip, found Jake Shirley a little bit, got down, and ran it in. Now, I'm going to focus a little more on El Camino here in the beginning before I shift over to Heritage. In this one, honestly, we had talked about, you and I, Kenny, off, and during the summer about what is El Camino going to look like. And El Camino at the media day said they're going to be young at some really key skill positions, but they're excited about what's happening. Well, color me happily surprised. Right, this quarterback is a sophomore. His name is Kevin Hawkins, and he surprised me a lot. He has sophomore happy feet, which we saw a little bit in the game yesterday, but he performed. I mean, he finished 15 of 21, didn't throw an interception. I don't even think he had a ball that was close to being picked. That's key to me when I look at that. It was 15 of 21. He had 204 yards, 2 touchdowns. Oh, and he also had the opening rushing touchdown for El Camino. So the athleticism is there. It's his first year at this level. It's a little bit of excitement just kind of watching him at the next end. They have some transfers that are coming in. So El Camino's in a position where you're looking at they're probably going to get better. But in this night, when they were really just hanging tough against a tough team, it was the question that arose to me was, how do they clean up a little bit around the edges? And who's going to step up outside of Jake Shirley? Because Shirley he was targeted 13 times of the 21. So that's obviously he's the key guy. He had 10 receptions for 149 yards and a 20-yard touchdown. So that's what we know. Right? We know Jake Shirley's going to be there. We know he's going to step up on offense. He's going to be the weapon. We see Hawkins now is the sophomore QB. He's able to get the ball to Shirley. He's able to scramble and run and make some plays. But who's going to be that secondary weapon? So they're not keying on Shirley the whole game, right? That's my question with El Camino.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, there's still a lot to be excited about when you look at what El Camino could potentially do, right? Like they still have this. I mean, and when you see this kid for a sophomore, I mean, he's a big guy, 6'4". He has a presence about him that he didn't seem rattled about playing against a Southern Section opponent. And even when you look at what he did against Palisades the week before, yeah, they got shut out. Palisades is a very good team. Palisades is a team that legitimately has a chance to challenge Birmingham for that open division championship this year. He completed 70% of his passes against them as well. So this is a kid that the moment's not too big for him. They just got to kind of figure out what's going on around him. I think personally they got to lean a little bit more and figure out how to get Jalen Sanders the ball. offensively to offset teams trying to bracket Jake Shirley so much. You got to find some guys that you can kind of put the ball in their hands to really sort of open things up for him. But there's a lot there to be excited about if you are a supporter of the El Camino program. This is a kid that could be at the helm of this thing for the next 3 seasons, and he's only going to get better and better and better. So, like I said, there's a lot there to be excited about. I think he is going to get better as the season progresses. I think that connection between him and Jake Shirley is only going to get stronger as the season goes on, and I'm sure that he has sort of probably been a guy who's who this young man has leaned on as being the kind of the leader of that team this year to kind of help him acclimate into the offense as well. So there's a lot there. There's a lot there with this kid. It sort of kind of felt like he's come out of nowhere in terms of, man, feeling like what was Elko going to do when they lost Javen Hall. But now it seems like they've got this kid who's a sophomore who is going to grow into the position, and they might be in really, really good hands.
Yeah. And we definitely have talked a lot about kind of where that core is going to grow from, and we're seeing it kind of start to emerge right now, and that's exciting. And now to go back to Heritage, because this was a team that, again, they lost the first week, and they actually, the stats kind of were more for them. They had more yardage, they had more of everything on offense. But the problem is they gave away the ball deep in their own territory, and it was capitalized on, and they ended up losing. And so how do you clean it up? You take care of the football, right? And you clean up some of those mental mistakes, and you give the ball to your workhorse, right? And for Heritage Christian, that workhorse is DJ Cole. You know, I saw him a couple times last year, and you could tell he was special, and he showed it again this year. He had that reception I was talking about at the beginning of the game. It was to him, 50 yards, boom. He finished the game with 14 carries for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns. So definitely someone they're looking to really lean on. And Heritage is another young team. They've got a lot of underclassmen. They're going to lean on their seniors. And they, I'm telling you, they looked good. There really wasn't too much separating these teams on the field. The scoreline does kind of belie the game a little bit. But, you know, you play to put teams away, and you play to actually have those performances where you can win the game. And Heritage took care of business. The other player I wanted to mention, another running back, another senior, actually, Shaheed McCullough, he had 4 carries for 50 yards and a touchdown. So that was kind of their two-headed attack, even though, you know, DJ Cole had the bulk of the carries, and 6 other people, including the quarterback, had at least one, right? But McCullough was very clearly someone they leaned on in that set, and he broke his. It was a 38-yarder. So he's someone to keep an eye on as the season goes. We know there's DJ Cole, and how are they going to continue to grow and mature as the season goes? That's going to be a good one to watch, and I know we'll probably be seeing Heritage a couple times this season.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like I said, when you look at the sort of the dynamic young players for both of those teams, we could have a real we could have some barn burners developing with those two squads, with Village and Heritage, over the course of the next couple of years. It's going to be really exciting. Like the amount of young talent that's on display, whether it be in the city section and now what we're seeing with these teams here in our own backyard here at a southern section, man, the future is bright.
Oh, definitely. And that takes us to the game of the week. Kaylie was there. It's going to be exciting to see what she has from her takeaways. There was a heartbreaking moment kind of early on, and we'll let her dive all into it. But welcome back.
Yeah, so I
And,
mean, Birmingham is my
away.
school, so I love watching them play, and I was really excited, especially after their 60-0 win week 1, to see them face Notre Dame again. In last year's season, they definitely started off not how they finished at all, and so we're used to seeing Birmingham load the front of their schedule with these harder Southern section teams, and I wasn't necessarily shocked by a loss, but I would have hoped for a tighter game. They lost 41-0, which wasn't, I think, what anyone wanted to see happen. I don't even think Notre Dame wanted that. I think Notre Dame would have hoped for a more competitive game too, but the gas was just kind of taken out of them early on with Emiliano Carlos getting taken out right at the beginning of the second quarter. And that was a tough injury to see. Prayers to him. Hope everything is okay. Hope he's recovering and we'll see him back later this season. But from that point on in the game, Birmingham just was having trouble connecting. They weren't connecting passes. They're typically a strong passing team. They weren't able to break through Notre Dame's D-line either. So the running plays weren't making it. They weren't covering the ground on the field they needed to. There was a lot of turnover on their part. And Notre Dame was just well-oiled and fine-tuned. They were moving the ball well. They were getting the jobs done that they needed to. They were making every extra point. So in that regard, it just seemed, honestly, some of the coaches heard me say this too, when you watched the game, it looked like a varsity team facing a JV team. Notre Dame was just way better practiced, and I think prepared for that game than Birmingham was. And because it's early in the season, I'm sure that that pendulum will swing by the end of the season, and we're going to see a lot of really good things from Birmingham. But last game was humbling for them, and it was not their best performance whatsoever. If you're a Birmingham fan and you watch Birmingham, you know that that's not how they typically handle business. So hopefully moving into week 2, we see some adjustments made and we see a better game.
Yeah, and just piggyback off of what Kaylie's saying is like the disappointment is not in the loss, and the disappointment is in the way you lose, right? We understand what the Southern section is supposed to be compared to our city section teams, but the thing that we take pride in a lot of times when it comes to our Birminghams and the Granadas and the Tafts and all these teams who will go out and schedule against these Southern section opponents is we're not afraid to play you. We're gonna fight you tooth and nail, or like Dan Campbell says in Detroit, we're gonna bite an ankle or a kneecap if we need to. So you want to see more fight. You want to see, and especially coming off of last season where it was sort of copy and paste in terms of what we saw this year, where like at some point we got to stop a screen pass. You guys are like Birmingham's a really good team. It just seemed like fundamental things they just kind of got beat over and over and over with. And that's the sort of thing where it's like, okay, we want to see the progression there. I want to see Birmingham. If Birmingham is going to be the kings of the city, we want to see them start to feel like a team that when they schedule this tough non-conference, it's not just for the sake of getting beat up to then turn around and then beat up the city. You've got kids who are good enough and are going to go play big time D1 ball. You prove that these kids and these talents are on the same level of these teams that we're going up against that are out of the Southern section. So, I wish that we would have saw a little bit more consistency offensively. It was a tough night for Tisdale and the weapons that they do have to kind of get anything going. But they're still going to be the team to beat, especially on our end of things. But yeah, you just wished you would have saw a little bit more that would let you know that like there's still a progression to this program. Like it's not just we're good at playing against city teams. No, we actually can go and hold our own against decent or high level southern section opponents as well, you know?
Yeah, and I don't think that it was for any lack of skill or anything like that. I mean, like, we've seen amazing things out of Kingston Tisdale, so we know that he's capable and we know that he's able to get the job done. But I think especially from that perspective, this last weekend I think there was, from what I understood on the sideline, there was troubles communicating with his teammates and people weren't understanding the plays. I think maybe there's some new kids that have been brought up from JV this year that aren't used to operating because it's only week one. I don't think they're used to operating on Tisdale's clock yet. And so once that communication issue is fixed and once they get the adjustments made that they need to, I don't think that we're going to see a game like that again this season. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, and that's the crux of it, right? That's the conundrum if you're Birmingham, right? Like there's always going to be on the high school level, there's always going to be some turnover. Like the first part of the season is guys having maybe that will play in JV. They're not kind of going to get up to speed on what we do here on the varsity level and sort of kind of it takes some time. Even if you've been practicing all off season, it is completely different when you get into these game situations and there's people, there's the band playing and the crowds and like you might be being asked to do something that you may not have been doing that often, and now there's communication issues. So when you are a team like Birmingham, you could schedule cupcakes, right? You can throw a couple. Yeah, you can throw Royal on the schedule. You can line up 4 Royals before you get into non-league. But does that get you better for what you're going to see down the line? But if you schedule a Notre Dame, if you schedule a Westlake type team, if you schedule Calabasas or some of these other teams that are loaded with talent, while you're working out your kinks, they might put a pasting on you that might make everybody kind of look at you with a side eye. But you, as a program that has sort of set a standard, you can't not schedule these games. Like we're trying to continue. They've got a 34 game win streak in the city. Like they're not just playing or just rolling the balls out just to be average. They want to be great. That's the standard that's set with this program. But while early in the season, those first 3 weeks when guys are trying to figure things out together, if you're scheduling the team like this, you might end up with a score line like that might not actually be representative of what this program is going to be in week 4, 5, 6, 7 down the line.
To kind of jump off on that point, when I was speaking with Coach Huff of Heritage after the game, that was actually a point he made to me because they're a pretty young program, and he's like, "Look, practice is practice. You know, you're probably not going all out in practice against somebody you see every week. This is your team, right? These are your friends. This is your family. But then come Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, depending on how the games are scheduled this season, right? You're seeing someone who wants to clean your clock. And these people want to take your head off. They want to beat you. They want to knock you down. Use the old Ray Rice adage, right? They want to hurt you, not injure you. They want to hurt you. So that way, when you think twice about playing and coming up against them, and that's how that's the only way they're going to learn and get better, right? Is you get out in these situations and then you take what you learn from that situation, good, bad, no indifferent, good or bad, and you fix it in the week in practice, and then you put it in practice, you put it out on the field the next week. And okay, what did you actually learn? And that's what honestly, that's what Birmingham's been showing us, right? These last few years is they take everything they practice, put it out on the field against these really, really tough teams, and they learn from it. And that was the point we made last year at this time, right? They get into league play and they're like, oh, this isn't as tough. And that's not knocking the West Valley League at all. It's just that some of these schools that they're scheduling are programs that would have a similar record as Birmingham does in the city section right now. So yeah, this is a working out a King's period for them. They've got the Texas trip coming up, so there's going to be some more growing pains, and the only way we'll know how well Coach Rose's team has figured it out will be week 5.
And I will be there.
Oh yeah,
we want you there week 5. So with all that, in a great week of football, we did not do this last week, but it is back, our player of the week. And this week, from week 1, we had a couple to choose from. It wasn't easy by any main stretch of the imagination, but it also wasn't extremely difficult as it has been in the past. We ultimately went with Ryan DeLutri from Village Christian. Now, he had 6 receptions, 161 yards, and he got his touchdown at the end of the game. But it's more so what he kind of embodies in the program. He broke the record with his first reception in the game. So celebrating everything he did last week for his career and now as a senior and what he can hopefully do the rest of the year, our week 1 player of the week is Ryan DeLutri. And there are some other honorable mentions that we'll get to. But first off, congratulations, Ryan. Awesome week. Congratulations on breaking the record. And we're excited to see more from you. And then the honorable mentions, Chase Everett. He had, like we said, 22 of 42, 286 yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 straight weeks, finding the end zone 5 times. I'll also give, pretty much his weapons all get honorable mention. Zoe Olalade, 6 receptions, 42 yards, 2 touchdowns. Lucas Lehman had 5 receptions, 43 yards, 2 touchdowns. Zavante Flornay-Trice, 4 receptions, 24 yards, 4 carries for 52 yards. So definitely kind of Village's offense is that honorable mention.
I have another honorable mention that we got to throw in.
Before I let you jump in, sorry, Kenny. I did see again, Jake Shirley. He gets an honorable mention, and not forget him. Like I said, he had 10 receptions, 149 yards, and 1 touchdown. So that is it for my honorable mentions. And I'll let you with yours.
An honorable mention, I want to go a little bit off the beaten path. It was something we talked about off air, and it's the San Fernando video production team that does great work at their school. They're obviously limited with what kind of equipment they have, but I think it is absolutely commendable that they put together live streams that you can tell that there's some work and some effort to present their sporting events on the high school level from that school in almost in a professional way with multiple cameras and multiple camera angles. And is the equipment the top of the line? Of course not. These schools do have their limitations, but the idea that I could go on to YouTube and anybody within the sound of my voice, go show them some love, give them a follow, check out the stuff that they're doing. They do it during the basketball season as well with with winter sports and in the spring as well with the spring sports. But there's a team there that are doing their best to give you a production of what they're doing with their high school teams from multiple camera angles where you can tell it's almost like there's a production truck switching from camera one to the field camera to the overhead camera. And it allows people like us who we try to consume as much of this content as we can so we can talk about these kids and talk about these schools and these programs. And the fact that they're plugging away and doing and presenting these content out, putting this content out there for people to kind of see and be a part of what San Fernando High School is doing, I think is very commendable. We would love to be in a position someday to kind of help with that and help improve the quality of the program. But there is no replacement for the quality of their effort and what they're trying to do and putting these live streams together. So I just wanted to send a shout out to that whoever is behind the production teams and the kids who are working those cameras and the people who are working those cameras. You guys are doing a great job, and keep it up, because people like myself are watching and supporting you guys and rooting for you guys along the way.
Yeah. So if you're watching right now, go give a follow to San Fernando High School on YouTube, because that is definitely worth it. And while you're at it, you should also make sure you like and follow us, please. And thank you. We appreciate all that. Always appreciate you guys. We love it when you guys jump in our comments. We love it when you guys attack us in the DMs, or tell us we missed something, because we're human, and we'll tell you, hey, we missed it, we'll be better, or we'll tell you we were actually there and this is what we saw. We love the interaction, and we're here for all of it. So on that note, thank you, and we will see you all next week.
Peace.
Thank you.